Are you desiring more out of life? More love, more connection, more experience, just more aliveness? Well, that is your soul calling you, and together we are going to uncover those soul desires and help you bridge the gap between your physical life and your true soul self. Welcome to the Suddenly Spiritual Podcast. My name is Emilee. I'm an intuitive, a psychic medium, and someone who recently and very suddenly awakened to spirituality. On this podcast, we are going to talk all about connecting with your soul to live your fullest, most beautiful life. We're going to talk about spirituality from the perspective of the everyday person. It's my goal that you feel seen and supported on this journey of discovering your soul and awakening to the incredible world of spirit. Let's get started. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Suddenly Spiritual Podcast. It's me, Emilee, your host. I am so happy to be here with you again today. I can't believe we're already over 30 episodes on the podcast. This is so exciting. When I first started the podcast, I knew I could talk about spirituality forever, but now I have proof. I have more than 30 episodes talking about spirituality now, and I still have hundreds and hundreds of ideas in my head for episodes that are going to be coming out in the future. I just love that you're here with me on this spiritual path, listening and being beside me as I experience my own spiritual awakening, as you experience yours. I totally see us as peers on this path, and I love that I get to share all the messages that come from spirit, that I get to share them with you. It is such a cool experience. If this is your first time tuning in, like I said, hello, my name is Emilee. I am someone who very unexpectedly and very rapidly awakened to spirituality. My spiritual awakening experience was very unexpected, and it went incredibly quickly. From the moment I first learned what intuition was, I first learned I had a soul, to the time that I started doing energetic intuitive readings for other people. This was less than 9 months. It was insane. It was so rapid and confusing and wild. And if you want to hear more about my own spiritual awakening journey and what has brought me here talking to you on this podcast, you can hear all about my story in the very first episode of this podcast, where I share a little bit about that rapid journey, how it got started, what happened, and how I got here today chatting with you. I bring that up about my spiritual awakening because today we are talking about how to come out of the spiritual closet. I phrased it this way and I titled it this way because coming out of the spiritual closet is how I've most often heard people referring to and talking about finally telling the people in their life that they are spiritual, that they're having this spiritual awakening, and how people finally start sharing their spiritual experiences and allowing themselves to be seen by others as this spiritual person. If you are listening to this episode, I'm going to guess that you are trying to decide if it is time for you to start sharing your spiritual experiences with the people in your life. I'm going to guess that you are on this journey of spiritual awakening, and you've probably gone through some major internal changes in how you perceive yourself and how you perceive the world and how you connect to spirit, to God. If you're like me, your whole stinking world has been flipped upside down. And maybe now you are just exploring this connection with spirit and these new beliefs. Maybe you are using tarot cards or oracle cards. Maybe you're using crystals. Maybe you're having visions. Maybe you're connecting with past loved ones. Whatever it is that has brought you on this spiritual path, wherever you are now, I know that it has made an incredible impact on who you are. And it's likely that you have experienced some very extreme changes in who you are and how you perceive yourself and how you choose to experience the world. Maybe your outside world hasn't changed much yet, but internally you are like a brand new person. And now you're trying to decide, is it safe for me to share this new version of myself with the people in my life? You're thinking, how do I tell them? Who do I tell? Should I even tell them? How do I know that they will accept me? What if they don't accept me? What if I lose friends? What if my family doesn't want to talk to me anymore? These are all such valid questions, and there is so much emotion tied up in them. And it's only pretty recently that I have come out to my family as someone who's spiritual, that I've started sharing my experiences, that I've told them, hi, family, I do readings for people. I do energetic readings. I have a mediumship connection and I do mediumship readings. It's only very recently that I have felt brave enough to share that with my family. And so I want to share with you today how I came to the decision that it was time to share that with my family. And I want to give you this caveat. When I talk about this, I'm like halfway there with fully living my life as someone who's very open about their spirituality. I'm only about halfway there, maybe even less than halfway there. I have my spouse and my family, like my parents, my siblings, who know that this is what I'm pursuing right now. They know about my spiritual experiences, but the majority of my friends in my real physical life have no idea. My extended family mostly has no idea. I have not shared this part of myself with everyone yet. I would say I've got like one foot in the closet and one foot outside, and I'm kind of straddling both right now. And I want to share with you about this topic, even though I'm not there yet, because the process that I've been using to decide when it's time to share, I think is really useful. And if you are trying to figure out if it's time to tell people about this new part of yourself, I really think that this will help you along the way. But I want you to know I don't have it all figured out. I'm not fully living out my physical life with everyone knowing about my spiritual gifts. I understand it's pretty scary to tell people about these beliefs and about this ability to connect with energy, to connect with past loved ones. And it is not something I ever thought I would have to tell people. But I just want you to know, if you are not ready to tell people about this, there's no problem in that. And there's absolutely no rush to do it either. There is nothing wrong with keeping this to yourself. Nothing wrong with it. It doesn't mean that you are ashamed. It doesn't mean that, you need to hurry up and get brave and tell everyone. I don't think that that's it at all, because your spiritual awakening and your spiritual journey is really an internal experience. It is about you coming back home to your soul and recognizing the beauty and love and eternity that exists within you, within your soul, and how that connects with the universe, how that connects with everyone, everything. And it's connecting more deeply into that love, learning who you truly are at that soul level, and then learning to live your life from there. But as you're in this process, I don't think there is any obligation to share that with anyone else if you don't want to. You can, but you don't have to. And you shouldn't feel pressured or like there's something wrong with you because you are too afraid to tell people right now. I think you're totally fine. And I also think that thinking it through before you reveal this part of yourself, rather than just rashly rushing forward and telling the world about your new spiritual connection, I think that spending the time to think about it before you do it is very smart and it will serve you well. So, for my own personal journey of revealing to people this new spiritual aspect of myself, I was absolutely terrified, terrified to tell my family, to tell literally anyone about my new spiritual beliefs or about the fact that I was doing readings for people. I had so much fear around this. And this was really based on the fact that the way that I grew up, I went to church, a Christian church every Sunday. We went on Wednesdays. The majority of, maybe not the majority, but a good portion of the people in my family work in the church. There's so many connections to Christianity in my family, and I was so worried about being accepted for my experiences because it doesn't align with the type of Christianity that we were taught growing up. Additionally, I know that my family has viewed me in a specific way as a specific person for my whole life. And to present them with this new part of me and this new way that I was living almost felt like betrayal. It felt like I wouldn't be living up to their vision of me, and I did not want to disappoint them. I'm very fortunate and I have an incredible relationship with my parents, with my siblings. And because I have this really beautiful, happy, connected relationship with them, the thought of disappointing them, it shook me to my core. It was absolutely terrifying. And that partnered with the possibility that they wouldn't accept me, made coming out as this new version of myself feel just absolutely terrifying. Like it felt like so scary. There's no way I would ever be able to be brave enough to show this new part of me. But eventually I did. The fact is, eventually I did tell them. And I want to tell you how I got to that point where even though it was scary, I was still able to have that conversation and have it in a way that felt safe for me. I spent so much time connecting with spirit and trying to decide, is it time now? Is it time now? Is it time now? When do I tell them? Because I really did know that I wanted to tell my family because I have such a good relationship with them. I really felt like I wanted to tell them. I wanted them to know me for who I really am. Even if they may not accept me for who I really am, I wanted them to know me and give them the opportunity to do that. So I had decided that yes, I do want to tell them, but I just could not figure out how. And each time I connected in with Spirit, asking for guidance on this, the vision that Spirit constantly showed me was a vision of this big rock sticking out of the water in the ocean. And there are all of these crashing waves crashing on the rock, crashing all around it. And the rock, it's a rock, it's a big old rock. And it is so strong, it never moves. Despite what's happening around it, it never moves. And Spirit kept showing me this and saying, you have to be the rock. You have to be this rock before you go and tell people. And it was this realization and this message that Spirit kept bringing to me that before I just go and tell everybody about these new beliefs and these new experiences, I need to be firm and strong within myself in my experience. If I'm still wavering and not fully believing in myself, not fully believing in this experience, it's not going to be a good idea to go and tell people because it's instead of me feeling like I'm showing them who I truly am, what is most likely going to happen is I'm going to question who I truly am. Spirit was guiding me to be strong in my perception of myself before I go and try to tell other people who I am. The other thing that I spent a long time working on is I realized that before I brought up this conversation with my family, I needed to be able to do it from a place where I wasn't being defensive, where I wasn't trying to defend myself or defend my experience. I had to have the confidence in myself and the confidence in my experiences. I had to know that this was true for me, believe in myself, in my experiences, in my connection fully 1,000% before I told them and had this conversation. I knew that if I didn't have that full confidence, then I would spend the conversation trying to convince them of my experience, trying to convince them that this is real and they should believe me. And I would spend it feeling very defensive, even if they weren't attacking me, even if they were asking a question that I knew I would respond as being defensive, as feeling attacked if I wasn't confident myself. And so I waited until I had that confidence and that ability to have the conversation without being defensive. Another aspect of this is I had to get to a place where I trusted my experience so deeply that it just didn't matter if they believed me or not. And I had to make sure that going into the conversation, my intention was just to share my experience in order to let my family know me fully and know who I am, because who I am now is just not who I was before. And my intention had to be just to let them know me. My intention could not be to convince them that I am right or to convince them that my experience is real. I had to let go of any desire I had for them to believe me. Because the truth is, and you know this as well, there's a lot of people who are not going to believe you. Maybe most people are not going to believe you that you're able to have this spiritual connection. And when I talk about being able to connect with past loved ones, most people, a lot of people probably do not believe that that is possible. And I had to realize it's not my job to convince other people that it's possible or to convince other people that my experiences are real. My only job is to know within my heart that my experiences are real, because that is my journey. But other people are all on their own journeys and they all get to decide for themselves. And whether they believe my experience or not has absolutely no effect on that experience. If no one believes me at all, that doesn't make my experience any less real. It is still real because I still believe it and I still know. And so I really had to develop that strength and confidence and faith within me before I brought this experience to other people. This was so important because doing this work ahead of time to feel confident and to feel sure in my experiences allowed me to be really detached from the response that I got. It was still scary to tell my family and have that conversation. I still wanted them to believe me. I wanted them to support me, but I also knew that I would be okay if they didn't. And I also knew that their response to what I was saying and what I was experiencing did not have to have an effect on those experiences. It didn't have to mean anything about those experiences, that their response was a reflection of them, not a reflection of me. So there was a lot of internal work that I had to do before I was ready to have these conversations with my family. I worked for a while on feeling that confidence. And then right before I called my parents, I spent time sitting and getting calm, connecting with spirit, on settling into what my intention was for telling them, what my intention was for that phone call and really getting solid in myself. And once I felt solid in myself, I picked up the phone and I dialed and I had that conversation with them. And it was so scary. I'm not saying that it wasn't scary. My heart was still racing. I was still nervous and I was pacing around and my hands were sweaty and I probably stumbled over my words so much. But I was able to do it and to move on. And the relief that I felt after making that phone call was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. And then I went on to tell my other siblings. I was able to tell my sister in person, which I was literally shaking. And I told my brothers over text message because I'm still a chicken sometimes. But it's all okay. It's all okay. The thing that I realized through telling my family was that I don't actually really need to tell anybody. I wanted to tell them because I love them so much and because I want them to see me for who I truly am. And I understood that in order to have a real relationship with them, I had to have that vulnerability. But after having told them, I realized that their reactions, which they were so accepting, which I honestly didn't know how they would react, but everyone was so accepting and it was beautiful. And it taught me a lot about trusting that other people love me. But I realized that I don't have to tell other people because originally, when I felt so compelled to tell people, it was because I was looking for validation from the people around me that what I was doing was good and real and they supported me. And what Spirit kept guiding me to, and I am so glad that I listened, but Spirit kept guiding me back to having that internal validation, to not be telling everyone about this experience because I want them to validate me, but to understand that that validation comes from within, the faith, the trust, the belief, the knowing in who I am and in the validity of my experiences has got to come from within. And if other people, if I feel compelled to tell them and they accept me, that's absolutely beautiful, but it's also not required. So I hope that this has been helpful for you as you're debating if it's time to tell people in your life, as you're debating who you should tell, how you should tell them. This is just the process that I went through to decide I was ready. And I was nearly 2 years into my spiritual development before I told my family. At the point I told them, I'd probably done 50 readings for people. I had been connecting in with Spirit every day for almost 2 years. I mean, I'd had some really radical experiences before I finally felt brave enough to tell them. And I think that eventually I'll step out into my life. I'll step completely out of the closet. I'll get 2 feet out of the closet eventually. But the truth is, I'm not there yet. I have such a deep, strong internal belief. I feel like I'm already so far into my journey of becoming that rock in the ocean where those crashing waves just don't affect it. But I know that to just come out to everyone in my life is going to require an amount of strength and certainty and faith that I'm just not sure that I have yet. I'm just not sure I'm there yet. And it is okay. It's okay. So as you're considering, should I tell people, should I not tell people? It's up to you. But I think you should really consider the internal aspects of why you want to tell them and then be really intentional with how you approach the conversation and how you manage your expectations for what could come from that. All right, my friend. I really hope this was helpful. I hope that you feel supported in your spiritual awakening journey as you learn to live from that soul place and then eventually show people your beautiful soul as soon as you're ready. There is no timeline. You're on the perfect path. You're amazing. And I love you. All right. I'll talk to you later. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Suddenly Spiritual podcast. I'm so grateful that I get to be part of your journey of spiritual expansion. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you would leave a review for me on Apple Podcasts. It's a quick, free, easy way for you to support this podcast, and it helps me reach more people who are looking for support on their spiritual journey. You can find a link to leave a review in the show notes. Thank you so much, and I'll chat with you soon.